Welcome to your weekly UAS news update. This is the week of September 27, 2021, and this is the place where you get your news not 2 weeks late. 4 topics this week. The first one is new Autel and new DJI drones, where we are going to be talking to Haye from Drone Excel and also Ken Dono from OriginalDobo. We'll have a little discussion about all of these drones that are on the horizon, what we think is cool, what we think is not so cool, and what we predict. We're going to talk about a raven, that's a bird, that attacked a wing drone down in Australia. That was kind of an interesting encounter. We'll see how Amazon is reacting. And then we'll talk about some people flying near forest fires, which is not a great thing. And we'll talk about the byproduct of that. And then lastly, we'll give you a Pilot Institute update. We've actually been pretty busy this week working with DSPA, our friends at the Drone Service Provider Alliance. And we'll tell you the 3 things that we've been involved with. So let's get to it. All right, the first segment this week, we're going to talk about new drones because, well, that's pretty much all that you see in the news at the moment. And I brought in 2 good friends to talk about drones. First, we have Haye from Drone Excel. You're familiar with Haye, and you're also familiar with Ken Dono from OriginalDobo. And both of these guys have a lot of information about the drones. They have a lot of opinions about these drones. We've talked drones a lot off camera and on camera. So Haye, welcome to the show. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to get started talking about Autel. They sent an email. We have some of the specs, not all the specs just yet. I think we're kind of waiting to get more information from the user manual. The drone is not going to be out for a little while. But Haye, what did you find out about those specs? And especially, we have 2 different drones, right?
Yeah, there's actually just 4 different drones. So they call them the Evo Nano and the Evo Lite series. And both of these series contain 2 different drones. So you have the Evo Nano and then the Evo Nano Plus. Slightly different specs. One is better for low light performance, the Plus one is. And then you have the Evo Lite and the Evo Lite Plus as well. It's kind of the same deal. The cheapest one, less than 250 grams, the Evo Nano, and priced at $650. The Evo Nano Plus, priced at $799. And then you work your way up to the Evo Lite, 1,149, I believe, and 1,249 for the Evo Lite Plus. So there's 4 new drones, basically with specs that could suit anybody who's looking to get into drone flying, or even people who already have drones. The thing that I think is most exciting is that Autel is offering some legit competition here for DJI, and I think that's something that we all would get excited about.
Yeah, and I know, Ken, you did a video a couple of days ago talking about the Nano. Give us your first thoughts on the Nano, because I know you had a lot to say on the video, and we'll put a link down here if you guys want to watch this video as well.
You know, the Nano is sort of interesting. I don't think anybody was expecting the Nano to be quite as highly priced as it was. I think people were thinking, we hear a Nano, we hear a 249 gram drone, we immediately think it's going to be budget, and then we get $649 and $799 respectively. But I think what they're trying to provide is a gap that DJI quite couldn't fill with the Mini, at least this year, because the Mini is a great drone, but nothing screams professional or that intermediate drone pilot. It's very much a beginner drone. So I think the area they're trying to target is that person who wants more, but doesn't necessarily want it to weigh more. They want it to still remain, compact. And of course, they added in those new colors that, it just makes it a more personalized experience, which I think is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's almost like we have 3 categories of drones now, right? We have the very small sub 250 gram, then we have the intermediate level like the Air 2S, like the Lite, and then we'll have the foldable drones that are a little bit larger, like the 2 Pro, and then everything on the Evo II, Evo III, Mavic 3 Pro, which we'll talk about in a second. And it's almost like they created a category in between each of these with the Plus, right? So if you don't want just a Mini, but you don't want to go to the mid-level, then you have something in between. It's almost like cars now. You have cars of all sizes and all different motors. I know, Ken, you like the cars. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Sensors, right? This has sensors on it as well, right?
Yeah, so this one's got front obstacle avoidance, rear obstacle avoidance, and bottom obstacle avoidance. The only thing missing from the Nano and the Lite is the top obstacle avoidance and side obstacle avoidance, which some would probably claim is the most important obstacle avoidance. That's typically where most of your UAV accidents will happen, is when you're panning left and right. So that's sort of interesting that they did that, especially with the Lite, considering it's essentially, I don't want to say it's replacing the Evo II, but it doesn't look like we're going to see a version 2 of the Evo II for consumers the way their sort of modeling is turning out.
Oh, interesting. Haye, did you find more information about an Evo 3 possibly around the corner?
Yeah, rumors are that there might be an Evo 3 coming later this year as well. I think the question with Autel, of course, always is, will they actually deliver on time as well? So when we hear later this year, I don't know if it's actually going to be later this year or maybe even into next year. I can also imagine that, of course, with DJI and Autel being fierce competitors, that Autel might be trying to wait and see what DJI is going to come out with, or maybe DJI just the same with Autel. So we're still hopeful that we're going to see it before the year is over, and that would be quite exciting for sure.
Yeah, one of the specs I was really excited about was the receiver and getting 2.7K on the controller as opposed to the typical 1080. I know when I got the Air 2S, I fired it up and I looked down and I was like, whoa, this is actually really good quality coming from OcuSync 3.0. I'm excited to see what 2.7K is going to look like on the screen. That's going to be something excited. Were you guys as excited as I was?
I don't think I'm as excited for the 2.7K. I mean, the vast majority of our screens can't even take advantage of that resolution. When I started thinking about it, I was like, 30 FPS, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a choppy of experience, as opposed to, I would have been more impressed if it was like 1080p, lower latency, maybe 120 frames, 60 frames per second down to the RC. I think to me, that would have been more impressive. It sort of feels like they're just throwing numbers out there, at this point, like just saying, hey, we got it, but we don't, it's not, I don't know. I don't think it's something that users essentially would look at, though. But it is impressive to see that they can do it. But
I agree with
shattering my dreams.
I agree with you there, Ken. I think it's always the proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, at the end, you have to fly the drone and see what the connection is actually like,
right?
And how. I mean, I think a lot of times when they say, oh, the range is so many miles, I think most pilots will probably agree it's not so much about the distance, it's more about the quality of the transmission, because typically, I mean, you wouldn't be able to fly or you wouldn't be allowed to fly that far off anyway. So,
yep. No, what about those colors? What do you guys think about those colors? Which one?
I have
don't care that much.
Mixed opinion on that. I don't care about the colors, but Autel has historically had an issue just delivering an orange drone, and now we're adding colors into the mix. And rumor has it, I'm not going to quote where this came from, but only orange and white will initially be available at launch, and the red and the gray are going to be the hardest to actually get. So it's going to be interesting if they can fulfill the orders. They're saying, late October. Historically, they've never met a deadline not even since the X-Star days. They've always missed every single deadline that they have quoted historically. And it would be the wrong time for them to falter on that now, considering all the drones that are coming out. And I think even Parrot has thrown their hat into the ring with something that was teased recently. So it's just a bad time for them to screw this up. They got one shot, I think.
Yeah. What do you think about the pricing? When I first looked at it and I opened it up, the email, and I said, wow, that's actually a pretty high price. But Ken, you had a good point saying, it brings in a few more settings. Do you think people are going to be looking at this that want to buy a mini size?
I think we've gotten to a point where cheap is good, but cheap isn't great, right? So if you price out a drone like, let's say, the Mini, you're going to have compromises. You're going to have things that you're just not going to have on, let's say, the Air 2S that you have like on the Mavic 2 Pro, or vice versa, the Air 2S to the Mini. So you're always going to have compromises. And I think Autel's realizing that is if somebody wants something bad enough, or somebody wants it all, they're going to be willing to pay those prices. And I think that with the Autel flyers, they're just a little bit different than the DJI flyers. There's somebody who doesn't want to buy DJI, and well, if this is the only other game in town, essentially, then it sort of warrants that price, if you look at it from that perspective. But then one could obviously argue, well, just buy an Air 2 then. I don't know. It is interesting to see.
Yep. What do you think, Haye?
I don't know. I think the pricing is not necessarily an issue. I think people might just, in general, have less trust in the Autel brand than they do with DJI drones. So you see when DJI comes out with a new product, people start buying online the moment the announcement is being made official and the moment that they open up the store. I think for Autel drones and the history of them not being able to deliver quite on their promises, I think a lot of people will be a little bit more just waiting and seeing to watch the first reviews come back and get some feedback of people actually fly these drones to see if these specs actually live up in real life. And then in that case,
there's a lack in buying confidence.
I think there is, but I think however, these drones do live up to these specs, and if it is, a really good product, I think people will flock to Autel drones, and that's the part that I'm excited about. Is that would actually generate real competition for DJI, and as we all know, we need that.
Yeah, we all win.
Yeah, but
we all win when there's competition.
They got to execute. They got to execute before November, though. I think if they want to have a shot at capturing sales, because what I envision happening, and I've seen this happen in the past, is this cat and mouse game between DJI and Autel. Is that Autel will show their cards first, and then it takes forever for it to ship. You have pre-orders, and then all of a sudden DJI announces something, and then all right, well, everybody's canceling their pre-order for the Autel because DJI is ready to ship within 2 weeks. And it's a confident thing. It's like, okay, you're going to have it. You got a shipping number. You've got everything you need to do. So I think if realistically, it has to be in consumers' hands no later than the 15th of October, because if the rumors are correct about the Mavic 3, we're seeing, the first week, second week of November, most retailers have a 30-day return window.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's important.
I agree, and I think drone pilots in general might be wary, right? I mean, we know what happened with Skydio when they came out with their Skydio 2. People rushed and put their orders in, and some people have waited like a half year to a year before they got their product. Autel has a history of that as well, a little bit. I think people are going to want to wait and see and fly these drones, or at least see the reviews of other people flying them before they might pull their wallets.
Let's hope we get some on our hands and we can do those reviews.
Yeah.
I want a good trend. This is a good transition. Let's talk about what's going on the DJI side. Obviously, this is a hot period for new drones, and you found a whole bunch of new information about the Mavic 3 Pro. We get photos. We may have a pricing. We have some more specs on the drone in itself. It looks like there's 2 different models that are going to come out. And then what else? I know there's been a ton of stuff. Just as soon as we posted a video last week, we got all the news from. So tell us a quick summary of what you found this week, Haye.
Yeah, it pretty much happened all over the last 4 or 5 days. Jasper Allens, a guy in Holland that I actually work with quite a bit, he was able to get his hands on an instruction manual from the DJI Mavic 3, as well as a whole bunch of photos. So with that information becoming public, we were able to piece together quite a bit. Basically, there's going to be 3 different versions. So you're going to have the DJI Mavic 3. There's no mention of the word Pro anymore. So just DJI Mavic 3. Then you have the DJI Mavic 3 Fly More combo. So now you get the back, you get the 3 batteries. There might be, I think you get some ND filters as well. But that's pretty much it. And then you get the most expensive one, which is the DJI Mavic 3 Cine Premium combo. And that one is going to come with additional batteries, but also with the new version of the DJI Smart Controller. And that's now going to be the RC Pro. The idea basically from the DJI Air 2S, so you get that same controller, but now with a built-in screen. And the internals should be quite a bit upgraded compared to the original DJI Smart Controller. And I think that would actually be a very interesting package. We've heard some pricing information from Henrik Olsen, a guy in Denmark who runs a YouTube channel on drones. He seems to be very confident in his numbers. However, if you translate that into US dollars, the drone might actually become quite expensive. The Mavic 3 itself will be around 2,000 and then up to 2,500 for the Flymore combo, and then well into the close to $5,000 for the Cine Premium package. I'm not sure if the prices are going to be that high. Definitely don't hope they're going to be that high, because I think a lot of people would like the premium cinematic package, and yeah, $4,000 or $5,000 for a DJI Mavic drone. I think that's a bit much.
So that's we're talking about the same drone
Yeah.
in different packages, though, right? There's no different settings. There's no different specs. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, that's Inspire level, or that's much more expensive than the Phantom 4 was if we go to the Cine.
It's way more expensive.
Some of that cost goes to the licensing for the ProRes that ships with. So they have the ProRes that ships with. I've heard from a few people that the base price for the standard would be about $1,600.
Yeah, that's the number that first came out. However, we're not quite sure if that's accurate either. That might be on the low side, to be honest. What's really exciting about the Mavic 3, I almost threw the word Pro in there, is that you have a dual camera setup. So you get two cameras basically, Hasselblad branded. So we don't know if that's just color science or whether this time is actually some Hasselblad hardware in there. The top one is the one that has, I think, a 7 times optical zoom, half-inch sensor, 12 megapixel photos, and the bottom one shoots 20 megapixel photos, but is a micro four thirds sensor size. So when you look at it that way, the Mavic 3 Pro should be super versatile in terms of being able to zoom in and out. It should be a low light monster basically, and I think it would make older drones like the Phantom 4 Pro version 2 and maybe even the Inspire pretty much unnecessary for people at this point.
Yeah, that's a Mini Inspire 2 now.
Yeah.
I mean, with a Micro Four Third, except unless you have the X7. Yeah, it's an X5S compressed.
I just don't see them hitting the 2000s on that though.
I hope not, but
I just it wouldn't be conducive for their sales, right? You know, these things cost maybe maybe on the high end if you include marketing, maybe $700 to build these, right? And that's being generous. And then they want to get these into people's hands, and they have Autel hot on their heels producing similar base products. You trend into the $2,000 category, you lose customers.
Yeah, but at the same time, DJI Mavic Pro 2 or DJI Mavic 2 Pro, what is that? 1550, I believe.
1550.
Yeah, the Phantom 4 Pro version 2, was that not close to $2,000 as well?
I think it was 1,700.
Yeah, no. There's so much competition now. You know, back when the Phantom 4 Pro came out, it wasn't the same market. It wasn't the same market that it is now. It wasn't competitive. It's competitive now. There's actually competition. So, I mean, I'll take the under on the 1,600 on that. Well, and for the base, I can't speak to anything else, but the base version.
I definitely hope they keep it below 2,000. But when you look at these specs and having that dual camera setup, I don't really think there is going to be any competition. I mean, I don't see the Evo 3 coming close to these kinds of specs. I mean, maybe this is the drone to get.
There'd be only one way they could. I think they would have to make it, you know, where the Evo 3 had removable payloads, like hot swappable payloads, essentially. That would be the only way I think they can do something different at this point to make it worthy for a buyer. You know, an Evo 3, I should say. Make it where, you know, clip-on payloads and offer, you know, a plethora of camera systems. That would be the only way.
That would be the way to go for sure. If they can compete on price and they offer something like that where you can switch out payloads, that would be different than this. But in terms of versatility, I think this is pretty much up there.
Even if they did come in at $2,000, I will say this, that, you know, X Dynamics is fixing to launch the Evolve 2 that's coming in at $3,200, micro four thirds sensor system. And it's, you know, now it was first debuted to us at CES 2020 before the pandemic. I don't see a lot of, you know, I haven't gotten a chance to fly yet, but I don't see a lot of people saying, hey, you know what, let me spend $3,000 on this micro four thirds system versus the Mavic 3. It almost doesn't make sense at that point.
I think the X Dynamics we've even seen before CES, and I think they've had quite some problems getting that product in the market. So I think then you're already in that same area where people just don't have the trust in a certain brand or company, especially when prices go into the 2,000 or 3,000s even. People are going to scratch their heads and wonder where they're going to spend that and what they're going to get in return.
Yep. So you found some information on the release date, right, for the Mavic 3. Is that something for sure at the moment?
No, not quite. What we've heard was November 15th. However, based on previous product releases from DJI, once things start leaking at this speed, I would be surprised if we have to wait until November 15th. I think it might well be a week or two earlier than that.
Well,
yeah.
Going to be a busy October.
It's going to be crazy. But I mean, at the same time, we've been waiting for this, right? I mean, remember back in August 2018 when the Mavic 2 Pro came out and people started analyzing the video footage. And then they were like, oh, but the video footage is not up to par. It's not as good as the Phantom 4 Pro version 2. So basically, we've been waiting for this drone to come out for years. And it's been 3 years. I think people are ready. And I know in my personal group of friends that a lot of people are waiting for the Mavic 3 to come out anxiously.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Awesome, gentlemen. What did we miss?
I don't know. I think we covered almost
I
everything.
think we pretty much covered it.
I know what we missed. We missed Ken taking apart and decapitating his Mini live on camera in his video. So I'm not. That's all I'm going to say because I want you guys
To be fair, it was already broken. I just, we just finished the job. I didn't put it in a blender, so there's that.
There's a thought.
There you go. So yeah, go. Make sure you go check it out. I will put the link down in the description, but go check it out. It's a funny intro. Ken is really good at doing these funny intros. So
Awesome. Yeah.
all right. Well, gentlemen, thanks for your time, and we will be in touch.
Sure.
And I'm sure we'll talk more about these in the future. But let's move on to our next story. Okay, the next story is a raven was seen and caught on camera attacking a Google drone delivery wing, that's the name of the company, in Canberra, Australia. And that actually shut down the entire operation at Google down there. The bird was actually being seen attacking the drone several times, and nothing happened. The drone didn't crash or anything, but Google decided to kind of take a step back, and now they're consulting with a bird expert to see what they can do about all of these attacks. Apparently, this is not the first time this has happened. This is the first time it was caught on camera, but not the first time that it actually happened. So make sure you see the video playing in the background right now. That's kind of an interesting event. The next thing this week is don't fly your drone near fires. And we've covered this over and over again, but I know we always have new viewers, and I know it's not always you. It's someone who's not either paying attention or somebody who doesn't care about the rules. But please, please, please don't fly your drone near forest fires. The story here is in Montana, near the Shedhorn fire. This is near Yellowstone, and the fire has burned 74 acres so far. Now, on Monday and Tuesday, there were two separate flights by unauthorized drones near the area that shut down the air attack. Now, I live in an area that has wildfires, and I know I would be extremely, extremely pissed if I found out that somebody was flying their drone and preventing the firefighters from doing their job and saving somebody's house, somebody's life, somebody's whatever it is, property out there. So please don't be that guy. Stay away from forest fires. Just wait until you see footage in the news, but don't send your drone. Okay. Last thing, I want to talk about what we've been up to because we've been pretty busy on the, I don't even know what I would call it, but trying to protect our rights as drone pilots. And we've been doing quite a bit of this behind the scene, but especially this week it feels like. Now we're working with DSPA, Drone Service Provider Alliance. You've seen Vic on the show, you've seen Kenji on the show, and really, the bottom line is, well, there's always a municipality, an airport, or someone trying to put more restrictions on drone flights. We talked this week to the Forest Service about a plan that they have for Grand Mesa, Gunnison, which is near Grand Junction in Colorado, and they're trying to put some pretty strict restrictions on drone flights. Now, this is recreational drone flights. We had a kind of a behind-the-scene meeting. Vic was in there, a bunch of other people from the community were in there, and trying to convince them that we don't need to go through the length of restricting flights everywhere inside of this area, just because there supposedly have been some issues. Now, they couldn't really tell us what the issues were. Anyway, a lot of details in here, but we're trying to have guidance rather than restrictions going on in that area. This is not the end of it. They still have a draft. They still have things that they need to come up with until they have the final version. But this is somewhat concerning. Even if you don't live in that area, this could set a precedent for other Forest Service area. And we definitely don't want to see drones prohibited from flying anywhere in the Forest Service land. Another thing that we've been working on is a private airport and a private community in Sun River, Oregon. and they have some pretty restrictive airspace restrictions on their website. So we reached out. We've been working with the airport manager out there. They're very reasonable, I think, and hopefully we can come up with something. This is one of our students that brought this up to us. Actually, both of these topics were brought up to us by students. And then the last thing is we're working with the FAA on lens rejection in zero grid. And this is not a black and white issue. We're trying to figure out what is going on with some restrictions and some rejections for requests in zero grid. And I think the bottom line is going to come down to is education and how we can better educate you guys to submit airspace requests in zero grid. There is more to this. There is more going on. We're still collecting data. We're talking with the FAA, so I'm hoping we can come up with something positive at the end of this and everybody can learn from that process. So this is it. This is all I have for this week. As always, like, subscribe, do all the stuff that you do, and then we'll see you guys next week.